Did you have a favorite show that you've been on?
I mean, wow. I've had a lot of amazing favorites, I guess. I think as it relates to the challenge, probably the first one that I won, which was called The Island. We were basically marauded on an island in the Dominican Republic for 5 weeks. And making it through that, it was very like similar to Survivor. Making it through that and winning that, it was my first win, and it was the first time that I really had to dig deep. That was a really high moment. Obviously, I did a season of The Traitors, which was an amazing opportunity. Didn't last very long. I was the first one murdered.
Completely, like exploded.
Yeah.
And it was so fun watching that.
Yeah.
And so what was the experience like? So let me ask you a question. You were off, as you just said, very quickly. Do they keep you there while the rest of the filming is going on? You go home.
You go home. Yeah. I mean, I stayed for a little bit extra time because I wanted to, bang around Scotland a little bit.
Right.
But shows like Traitors, House of Villains, it's another show I did on E last year. Worst Cooks in America. What's fun about doing competition shows outside of like my purview is I get to take all of the skills that I've learned and that I've honed on the challenge, and then I get to take them in front of a whole new production company, network, fan base, cast, and I get to showcase what I've learned and what I've, the knowledge that I've accumulated over the years in a whole different platform.
Right.
And for me, that is so exciting.
Yeah.
Slightly terrifying because you don't know how that's going to translate.
Right. But like as I said earlier, my 12-year-old daughter knew you from Traitors.
Yeah.
Which obviously she's not watching MTV and the challenge yet.
Yeah.
So I think that's very cool.
Good for her. Although I will say, so I do Cameo, right? Anyone who wants a Cameo, shout out your boy. But I do cameos, and I just had one yesterday. My 7-year-old son threw up in school the other day. He feels very embarrassed about him. Can you please, you're his idol. Can you please tell him everything's
so cool.
okay? And I'm like, buddy, come on, man. I actually threw up in elementary school. I used to be, believe it or not, terrified of public speaking. And I remember I had to give this presentation. I was in elementary school, and right before I went up to speak, I puked all over the place. So that was, kind of my message to him is it was like, dude, we've all been there. Don't worry about it. But then I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, your 7-year-old is watching the challenge and watching me
That's cool.
on reality TV, which is pretty wild. So.
Oh, okay, good. Well, then she's not too young.
Yeah.
I'll have her watch tonight.
Yeah, please do.
Is there a show that you are a fan of that you've never been on?
Yeah, Dancing with the Stars, The Bachelor. I think that'd be great. I think they need to have a Bachelor in between The Bachelor and The Golden Bachelor.
Yes. Hi, I'm over here too.
The Banatchelor.
Oh, okay. But what would your age? Okay, let's talk about women for a second. What would be your age range?
Hey, Christian, get ready on the edit button here.
Because you're 42, as you said.
Mm-hmm.
What if you're filling out a form online for who you want to date? What's your age range?
So here's the problem. Yes, I am 42 in the physical sense. I am still hardwired as a 21-year-old.
Oh, okay.
That's the one thing about reality TV. I think one of the other unintended consequences, side effects, whatever you want to call it. Emotionally, I'm stunted in growth, I think. And that's because I'm like Peter Pan. Even though, yes, I have gotten older, because I have continued filming and working with people in their 20s, which is where I started, I feel like that's kind of where I still am in a mental and emotional standpoint to a certain regard. And because that's who I'm surrounded by and that's the pool that I'm around, a lot of the girls or the people that I've dated are kind of in that same age range. So I don't know, mid-20s to, late 30s. I'm an equal opportunity employer. But I have learned my lesson, especially from dating on reality TV. It's not a good idea.
You mean to do it with someone on your cast or to do it at the same time? What?
Which makes it difficult because going back to the whole trauma bonding phenomenon, for those out there who don't know what trauma bonding is, it's like if you're ever in a very high stress, high emotionally charged experience with someone, some call it like Stockholm syndrome. It's a little bit different. Me and you are in a bank and someone robs it and we're held hostage all day because we've been through that experience together. this bond forms that if there's like intimacy on top of that, it's like this crazy bond that like can't be broken.
Right.
And I feel like the challenge or reality TV is the same way. Take Love Island, for example.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason why these people, we're watching it 3 episodes in, are so infatuated and in love with each other that if you see this person make out with somebody else, it's like your whole world comes crashing down.
Right.
What a lot of viewers don't realize is they've been filming for 3, 4, 5 weeks. Once you've spent that much amount of time with a person, okay,
Yeah.
that's the equivalent of going on 100 dates
Yeah.
in the course of that amount of time. Once you spend that much time with each other, and then on top of that, you add intimacy, and on top of that, you add stress and all these other factors, you're bonded.
Yeah.
So I've obviously fallen into that trap on my show. And what tends to happen is because you're in the same world, when you're in this artificial filming environment, hey, our schedule's the same every day.
It works.
We
and
wake
out
up
of
at the
it,
same
it
time.
does not. Yeah.
Exactly. We go to bed at the same time. We hang out with the same people. We have the same interests. Then you go into your outside life and you're like, I hate everything about
Right. I would
your
never
life.
speak to them. Yeah.
Your music sucks. Your friends suck. Why do you live here?
Right.
Like your place is an absolute disaster.
Right.
You know, so it's like all this stuff that at one time made sense. Now it doesn't anymore.
Yeah.
And then but at the same time, but then you're still, you know, expected
I
to be
totally
with this
understand
person.
what you're saying. I did on VH1. I did Celebrity Rehab.
Okay.
So we filmed for 3 weeks, and that is very intense because you're talking about emotional
Yep.
stuff. And, you know, I was dealing with like, you know, serious. I mean, I actually went on for love addiction. I did not have a serious addiction, but I talked a lot about
Love addiction.
Yeah.
What's love addiction?
Well,
Just constantly falling in love?
no, like replacing intensity for thinking that's love, which I bet you have a little bit maybe.
Wait.
So like, well, I'll get to that in a second. But I was dealing with
Is this like being a dry drunk? where you quit alcohol, but now you've just replaced that addiction with another one?
Well, yes, but they
Okay.
say that people that have addictions that like go to AA will like fall in love with each other because they're becoming love addicts
Yep.
because they're replacing one addiction with the other. But love addiction is really for people that can't find stable, healthy relationships because they put a mask on the other person and they just want to believe certain things. And then when the reality of the person comes in, they blame them. There's a lot of attachment and emotional things. But it's like they love being in love, but they're not picking the right person. Do you know anyone
Yeah.
like that? That they're just constantly like they
Yep.
meet someone, they're like, oh my
Oh, I
God.
know a
you're-
lot of people like
yeah,
that.
so that's love addiction. So I was on it for that. But
Okay.
I was on it, I was, you know, with, I don't know if you know these people, Leif Garrett, Eric Roberts, who's on Dancing with the Stars right
Okay.
now, Jeremy, Jason Waller, Janice Dickinson was my roommate.
Okay, I know Janice. Yeah.
So people like that. And if I was in a room with any of those people now, and I haven't spoken to Janice in a decade, obviously, because she's a little difficult, right? But I still have a love for her because of what we went through. It was
Yeah.
a really difficult 3 weeks. Like you said, you don't have phones, cameras are on you all the time. And I
It's a
will
unique
always
experience
feel a
that
certain
no
way.
one else will ever have.
Yeah, always. No matter what happens, I will always feel close to those people.
That's not my problem. So my problem is a little bit different. My problem is, and I think this is part of my upbringing. I grew up in a single parent household, right? My mom and dad divorced when I was very young. And both of them had relationships. You know, obviously my dad had long distance girlfriends. My mom, you know, had boyfriends growing up. So that's what imprinted on me was this marriage just never made sense to me.
Sure.
The idea of the mom and dad being together and through thick and thin and only being with that person, that's just never what imprinted on me was dad having girlfriends, mom having boyfriends. I think that, and also the fact that I'm a Gemini cusp, so I have the emotions of a Cancer, but I think in a lot of ways I'm wired like a Gemini. And the thing about Geminis is they're two-faced, which means in what I've interpreted as they're able to operate in two completely diametrically opposed worlds or universes and be totally fine in either one. So I feel like with me, when it comes to relationships, I am totally fine being single and being a bachelor and being on my own and dating. But then I also, if I'm in a relationship, am totally fine with being able to do that as well. And I think the trouble I get into is because I've been a bachelor for so long.
Right.
And because I am so self-sufficient, this is how I've always been. I make all my own food. I buy my own groceries, cook my own food, clean my own house, do my own laundry.
Yeah, you don't need someone.
I'm like my old Italian grandmother. Like that's what I am. And I think in this day and age, especially younger girls, they're not used to men acting like that.
Yeah.
They're used to the guy being like, yeah, you still up. And they'll come over and then it's like, all right, get a cab, like that sort of thing. I think they're not used to, like they say, chivalry's dead. With me, I'm just like old school. This is how I've always been. I enjoy taking care of people, right? If I have a girl over for a date or if we go out, it's like I'm going to do everything because that's just the way that I am. The problem is then, because I think a lot of times girls are so used to being treated like shit by men
and they
that when
fall
they meet,
for you.
Yes, and I'm not doing it. I give off like husband, daddy, boyfriend vibes.
Right.
But that's just me being me.
And then they think there's something special because those are the vibes.
So then what happens is, and okay, I cook like I said, I cook all the time. Every night, if I'm not going out to dinner, I'm gonna make my own food, drink wine, watch TV, hang out. But this is what I do on a regular basis. But if I have a girl over, they're like, oh my God, he's doing all this for me.
Right.
And then
he must really like me.
And that's the problem I run into, where it's like, no, I mean, I do like you, but I don't necessarily want to be in a relationship. Right. But then they get it crossed because of the way I'm acting that I do.
And then it ends, and then they think you're an asshole.
Yes. Yeah. And then they're like, oh my God, you know.
You led me on.
Whereas if I would have just been an asshole from the beginning, I have friends like this. I'm like, dude, you are just like, I could never treat a girl like that.
Yeah.
Like, you know, a lot of times it's like there's guys out there that just objectify women. Like I could not do that. But it's those guys that get away with being assholes and they never get called on it because I think girls set their expectations so low that they can't be disappointed.
Right.
Whereas with me, because of the way that I am, I almost feel like I force them to set their expectations very high. And then when I don't follow through necessarily with what they thought I was intending, I always run into trouble.
Right. Are you dating somebody now?
Yes.
Okay. Is marriage something in your future that you want, or you don't care? I know what you said about the imprinting, but do you think...
I do. Here's the thing. I almost feel like, okay, I feel like in order for me to get married, a couple of things are going to happen. I'm going to have to move somewhere rural, okay? I feel like I'm going to have to move to like the mountains or like somewhere for me, like when there's a lot of activity going on, I have a very hard time of just focusing. It's like, again, to go back to another economic principle, it's the idea of making a decision and being happy with the decision that you've made.
Right.
So if you go to Baskin Robbins and you get ice cream, it's the hardest decision to make because there are 31 different flavors. Yeah. And not only do you have a hard time picking a flavor, but then once you finally decide on a flavor, then you're looking at everyone else and you're like, did I make the right decision?
Do you think you have a grass is greener complex?
Yeah, absolutely. But I think the reason I do is because of what I'm exposed to.
Because of the distractions that you have.
Whereas if you go to it's like buyer's remorse, right? But then if you go to an ice cream shop where there's 3 flavors, chocolate, vanilla, and strawberry, not only is it easy to make the decision, you are totally fine with the decision that you made because there's not all these other options.
Do you think you're ever capable of falling in love with someone so much that if Giselle walked in or whoever your like hall pass is, right, that you would be like, no, I love this girl?
Yeah, absolutely. I just haven't found.
But have you ever been in love?
Yeah, I have. I have. I just, again, I feel like what tends to happen is this struggle, this push and pull begins to happen where I think a lot of times girls fall in love with who I am, and then once we're together, then they don't want me to be that person anymore.
Right. Because it intimidates them.
Or makes them feel insecure or whatever, but that's just who I am. That's just how I've always been. And that's who I need to be in order
Which sometimes is why it's easier for you to date someone who has been in reality TV.
Exactly. Because they understand it. So I'm like, this is the guy. I'm the same person. I have not changed, but now you want to change me. And I can't, because then if I change, then I'm not, like, this is why I am on TV.
Right. You're not going to apologize for.
And this is who I've always
what you
been.
get
This is
paid
who I
for.
am when you met me, and this is who I'm going to be for the foreseeable future. So that's and like I said, that's what always ends up happening when I'm in a relationship. Is it's fine at first, but then as it goes on, I don't want you doing this. I don't want you going here. I don't want you posting this. I don't want you traveling here. I don't want you going away for long periods of time. And I'm like, but that's what I have to do. And then I end up taking all this energy that I could be focusing on my life, into my career, into just trying to keep a relationship afloat. And then I start having this reoccurring dream where and I know this what it is. When I'm in a relationship that I need to get out of, but I don't know how to, I have this reoccurring dream where I'm on some sort of a unstable structure, a rope, a ladder, side of a building, and I'm hanging on for dear life, but I can't climb any further and I can't climb down. And I'm like, at any second, I'm going to fall. So the only thing I can do to hang on is to hang on. And I feel like once I start having that dream, that's when I'm like, all right, I got to get that.